Yo, what's up? Welcome in to Stack and Dubs. We are done with day one, round one of the NBA draft, and the Warriors come away at the 11th pick with Yaxel Lendebourg. I give the pick an A minus. I think there were a few other options that you can argue would be better. You could argue that Yaxel is the best case scenario. Personally, I thought the option A would be flipping some sort of a trade. A lot of rumors about Trey Murphy and the Pelicans wanting to come up into the lottery. If you could have moved the 11th pick and then attached Pajemski and Moody's contracts and maybe given one more first round pick in the future, you might have had to give another one. Obviously, at a certain value, it's not quite option A, but I thought if they could have swung a deal that made sense and basically was a winning deal for the Warriors and the Pelicans were not getting as much value as they had hoped, yeah, then I would have preferred to just go chase someone who's an established fringe star in Murphy. Back at Dark Horse, if you could have somehow flipped a trade for Kawhi Leonard or Jaylen Brown or another star in the league, great. We'll also call those potential option A's. But we learned afterwards from Dunleavy that there wasn't really much momentum towards any sort of a trade for a veteran. And it's all just kind of social media just taking on a life of its own and speculating, which is fun. But it didn't really seem to be that much of an actual option for Dunleavy and the Warriors. So option B, I know I said if you're going to keep the pick, my last episode, we talked about how Yaxel was going to be my first option, followed by Burries or even Kingston Flemings if he fell, but I didn't really think that was going to happen. So Burries was my second option originally. But since that episode a few days ago, heading into the draft, I actually flipped them. I thought Burries, and I believe that's also what the consensus and also what the Warriors ended up going into the draft with on their big board is Yaxel slightly behind Burries, very close. I think Burries is just gives you a little bit more upside, the youth. Obviously, you need like the big wing that Yaxel will be, but Burries kind of just gave you a little bit more POA defense and shooting, and I think just maybe a slightly better fit. But that doesn't really matter because we came away with what I would call option B minus, just call it option C, which would be Yaxel. I would have also been fine if they ended up with Merez Johnson, who the Mavs reached on. I would have been fine with Cameron Carr, who fell, and the Lakers got a steal, getting him at 22, pick 22, I believe. I also would have been fine with LeBaron Philon. So we had some options there, but ultimately, I think Yaxel is going to be the best pick, at least for the short term timeline. And then we'll kind of see how as he grows. And obviously, we know he's a little bit older, so the ceiling may not be quite as high, but hey, you never know. There's plenty of 24-year-olds that break out at 24, 25 years old and turn out to be stars. I love the pick. It's because it fits the current timeline. You're trying to compete with Steph Curry still. I think of any prospect in this draft, I mean, you could argue he's the most NBA ready, aside from maybe the superstars at the top. Just NBA body, does everything well, doesn't really have too many weaknesses. There's some swing skills we'll talk about that are going to dictate whether he really truly becomes closer to an all-star or just kind of hit that high ceiling is what we'll call it. But the floor for him is probably the highest floor for any player just in terms of skill set, size, body, just IQ, maturity. I know he's come a long ways in maturity, even from a year ago, which Dunleavy was saying. And yeah, I think he fits the current timeline. He has a high floor. And you could argue that he was the best available at that point. You're not reaching for him just to fit your timeline. He was potentially the best available player at that spot. You could argue Adai Mara, but if you heard me already and several other people, I was not a Mara guy. I just think the ceiling is not quite there for him to become more than called like a 15 to even 18 point scorer long term. And the floor, he could end up only being a rotational player. Like we've never seen him with full minutes, even in college. He is the big questions about his mobility and slow-footedness. Maybe he just becomes a target on defense. Despite great rim protection, there's a chance that he could be exposed for just not being able to guard on the perimeter. Will the jump shot or just even just kind of the stretchability ever come along? There's just some big question marks that could potentially make him a guy that can't play in certain situations. And so because of that, and also the limited ceiling, I thought that he was kind of further down on my big board personally. Also, mix that with the fact that the Warriors are probably going to re-sign Porzingis, still have Horford there. I just didn't see as much a need or immediate role for Mara, but he is a great rim protector. So I think the Warriors also had a similar big board. It sounded from what Dunleavy said, and Cal Kami reported this later, that aside from Cameron Boozer, they had Yaxel and Burries as the highest on their big board. Take that with a grain of salt because essentially they just weren't targeting any of those point guards, lead guards that may or may not have fallen to them. Didn't seem like that was a priority to them, which also leads me to believe that I don't think they would have taken Flemings. I don't think they would have taken. They obviously didn't take Phylon, but I don't know how if he was even on their board, which I know a lot of Warriors analysts, including myself, liked LeBaron Phylon a lot, but it didn't sound like the Warriors were seeing guard as a position of need through this draft. And so they say Yaxel was on pretty even footing with Burries, which I think means they wanted Burries and or Yaxel, and essentially Burries got taken before them and made their decision early. Easy for them. Then you see Joe Lacob arguing with Dunleavy in the Warriors war room, and you think initially, well, is he disagreeing with the pick? How have they not figured this out at this point? Did he want Nate Ament? Did he want Adaimara? From what we hear, it just sounds like they got a moderate offer to move down, and they just basically they weren't going to do it, and they were just going to make the pick. Dunleavy also said Joe was just excited and wanted to make the pick, but you have 5 minutes, so just chill out and let's actually just think about things really quick. Either way, it wasn't a great look for the Warriors. It wasn't a great look for Lakeup. My mind immediately goes to, and this is why Bob Myers left, and this is why Jerry West left. You have an owner who is way too involved, thinks he's a GM. Just let the basketball minds work. Just chill the F out and let Dunleavy do his job. But sounds like they were, at the end of the day, aligned on taking Yaxel with that pick. So we will move on. Back to just Yaxel and just kind of talking about, him as a player and how he's going to fit the Warriors. Again, not quite as high a ceiling as some of these younger guys, but it fits because you're still in the Steph Curry timeline. He's going to be, ready to play. He could end up logging huge minutes in the beginning of the season, and you just couldn't afford to take a risky kind of project like a Nate Ament, like one of these younger guys, just because you can't miss after taking Wiseman, after taking Kuminga. You can't just go take Nate Ament, who is essentially the same type of raw, athletic, long build, but just would take time to develop. So obviously not going to take someone who is going to take a few years to get to NBA ready and to get minutes. You need someone who could potentially start immediately, which I think Yaxel, there's a good chance that, him and Guy Santos, we'll see kind of who's going to end up starting at that 3 spot. Obviously it's, Guy did a great job last year, but I think he's best in a roll off the bench. And if you think Yaxel's ready, I think he fits the lineup more as a connector. He can start immediately. He gives you that positional size at wing because the Warriors are going to need a wing defender, especially in the starting lineup against, most teams in the NBA. The best teams have really good small forwards, really good wings. That's where I think, assuming he can hang with them athletically, I think he gives you the most bang for your buck and just kind of starts in that role of, hey, I'm going to focus on defending your Kevin Durant's, LeBron James's, maybe LeBron James in practice if LeBron comes to the Warriors, your Jason Tatum's, just those wings that you don't really feel comfortable having Guy Santos guard. the wings that you don't want to have to put Draymond Green on the whole game. You want to be able to give him some reprieve and also play off the ball. I see Yaxel and Draymond just being very switchable, and then when Jimmy's back, the three of them now you have three guys who can guard wings, combo forwards, even guards, and they're switchable, they're smart, they're long, they're disruptors. Yaxel's priority and the most value he's going to provide to this team initially is just on that defensive side. Versatile defender, 7'4" wingspan, can give you weak side protection at the rim, gives you rim protection as a wing, which the Warriors are really not have. You barely even have rim protection out of your bigs. But hey, now you have potentially Porzingis and Horford at that back line. Draymond Green potentially when you're going small, but now he's at that four spot. Then you have Lendebourg at that three, who averaged 1.8 blocks per game at Michigan in the Big Ten, which is arguably the best conference in the NCAA last year. Gives you a lot of hope on the defensive side because there are still going to be big holes at that point of attack and perimeter D. Steph's fine, but you're just kind of putting him out on a shooter in the corner. And who knows if Melton's back? Who knows what GP2's deal is and kind of how he fits certain lineups? But you're just not Pajemski, better team defender than he is on ball. Moody, fine on ball, but he's not going to be here for a while, if at all. So you still just need to find some point of attack defense. But that back line, that front court with Lendebourg, looking pretty strong now. He's going to also rebound really well, which helps you on both sides of the court. But yeah, essentially now between Draymond rebounding well for a size and then Lendebourg, that offsets a bit of Porzingis not being the best rebounder for his size. Potentially they box out and Lendebourg comes in and grabs rebounds. Your guards can come and grab rebounds. Just gives you a little bit of that needed size where the Warriors were just getting destroyed over the last couple of years. On the offensive side of the ball, I mean, Lendebourg's best trade initially is going to be just that playmaking, high IQ connecting piece, right? Great passer. Coming out of college, maybe even a better kind of point forward passer on the offensive side than Draymond Green, even. And you're going to hear a lot of comparisons with Draymond this whole time. Not and he averaged 15 points per game. So he's not going to be a 20-point scorer in the NBA anytime soon. You're hoping that he can give you some shooting from the outside at a respectable clip to give you spacing, which is going to be a huge swing skill. But essentially, that passing, keeping the ball moving, him being a forward that can play on the perimeter, he's very comfortable being a ball handler, can play either side of the pick and roll. He can handle or he can be the screener, and then he's going to be extremely valuable in that short role as the screener. Set a screen for Steph, set a screen for Pajemski or whoever's on ball. Now you can roll and use your playmaking ability, sort of like Draymond Green does in that 4-on-3 situation. Use your IQ, use your vision, but he's going to be a better finisher at the rim than Draymond Green has ever been. And that gives you a much needed weapon and just kind of release out of the double teams that Steph's always going to see. He's also very low turnover. I mean, he had the ball a lot at Michigan. He's starting a lot of their plays as a play initiator, and I think he was like 1.2 turnovers per game. Also, a huge appealing trait to all Warriors fans and the coaching staff, who we just turn it over way too much. So again, very good to have that type of guy who's comfortable just dribble, pass, shoot, connect, rebound, all with good positional size, great wingspan, and can defend. I mean, arguably 1 through 5, but for now we'll call it 2 through 4, and occasionally can kind of switch out onto 1s and 5s. Yeah, I think that the comps that you hear the most, obviously, kind of a Draymond comp, a less athletic Aaron Gordon, like minus the verticality, but the length kind of makes up for it. But I can see kind of like a poor man's Aaron Gordon, an OG Anunoby, just someone who is going to at best give you adequate spacing from three, be able to create off that weak side finish at the hoop, which is important, and then just be a potentially all-world defender on the other side of the court. So these are all best case scenarios, but there's a lot to like. And again, we think the floor is high. I think, well, before we get into kind of the question marks, that's going to prevent him from getting to everything I just said. I also think just I love the pick because he's a great foundational bridge to the next timeline. He's not going to be the pillar franchise player, but the books are going to be clear in a year or two. You're going to have more high draft picks probably when Steph leaves. You're going to try to find that superstar to come to the team and hope that you have a good foundation of great role players, guys like Lendebourg, who are great complementary players and can help you get to that next timeline with the addition of another superstar. Sure, maybe he can be a potential star. I mean, he was, NBA, NCAA champion, probably would have been player of the tournament, was a consensus All-American. Yeah, I mean, he was pretty darn good in college. So yeah, maybe he gets there in the NBA. We'll see. But again, I think every team, no matter where you're at, you need to have wings. You need to have big wings with length, athleticism, someone who can handle the ball, someone who can connect, and someone who is a versatile defender with a high IQ. Hard to find on the wing, and it's something the Warriors have not had for a handful of years. The best being Andrew Wiggins with that athleticism and two-way ability, but I would say the ball handling connectiveness not as good for Wiggins as even maybe Lendebourg we'll get to. 6'9", 240, 7'3" and a quarter wingspan. It's hard not to fall in love with those measurements. They call him the Dominican LeBron James. So we'll see if you can even get anything close and keep that nickname. The question marks, the things we don't want to have to worry about, but obviously the shooting, very important. Can he space the floor? Can he shoot 36% from three, at least on open looks? Anyone in a Steph Curry offense is going to get open looks. Can he knock them down? Can you knock them down or attack the closeout, right? Can you command that closeout and then play make off of that weak side? You don't always have to knock down the three, but there needs to be enough of a threat of it to get an aggressive closeout, and then you can play make from there, which we already know he can play make. But it leads me to the next question mark for him is, will he have the quickness, the craftiness, and the handle in order to create offensively, to separate off the dribble? He was fine in college, used his height, used his size and body a bit, but it's kind of a straight line attacker. Can he find ways to create advantages off the dribble? The handle's okay. It's great. It's good for the size, but again, he's kind of more of like a power forward type with the ball in his hand. Or yeah, I mean, call it a power forward in terms of like his handle. Is he going to be able to just create offense one-on-one, find ways to beat his defender, collapse a defense, and then create off of that? If he's unable to create his own shot or collapse a defense or create for others, that would make him pretty limited on offense unless he's just knocking down open shots. Otherwise, you just become kind of a move the ball type guy, maybe running that dunker spot. I think one of his strengths is that he is very versatile on the offensive side. You see, that's what I like. I could say versatile, and you're like, well, you already talked about defensive, but he's versatile on the offensive side of the ball as well. Can score at all three levels, finds different ways to score on ball, off ball. I mean, I've watched a lot of film on Yaxel and just scores from pretty much every spot on the court. Very versatile. And he's gonna have to find his bread and butter and his kind of hot spots at the NBA. No one just scores from everywhere for the most part. So find your good spots, but it's good to know he can, find ways to create and score for himself. But again, it comes down to he's kind of got stiff hips. He's a little not slow footed, but he's just kind of a bigger guy, and he's not the most laterally quick or explosive. So How do you offset that? Are you skilled enough to overcome that slight deficiency against the world's best athletes in the NBA? And then on the other side of the ball, as good a defender as he is, will he have the quickness to stay in front of the better perimeter players in the league? I think he'll be fine against your bigger wings and can hold his own. Can you stay in front of, your shooting guards? Can you stay in front of guys like potentially like a Stephon Castle? Um, I won't say SGA. He's kind of more of a that he's part too quick, but you want to be able to put that size on guys like that. If you can guard guys like an SGA or kind of more lead guards, all the better. But I want you to be able to at least guard all the wings, including the fast, explosive wings of the league. Can you stay in front of them and be a plus defender against them? Because the quickness will be limiting. Can you take good angles? Can you stay down? Can you use your length and wingspan in order to contest, which he did a great job in college. Hopefully that can translate to the NBA. I guess I'll leave it there. Well, the last thing I'll say is, with this pick, doesn't sound like they're going to be making any huge trades, at least not right now. You're obviously still hoping for a big free agent signing, like maybe LeBron James. Still, who knows? Austin Reeves just got signed a max, so I don't know what that does for LeBron. But essentially, I still think the Warriors need to find a perimeter defender, 3-and-D type, more of like a shooting guard. Melton, Melton's still a good fit. If you can get Melton to come back on his contract and he doesn't get enough attention elsewhere, he's a good fit with this team. You do need that backup point guard, handler, and just again someone who can defend. I don't think he's going to be back. He's going to want a little bit more money. But hey, if you can get Melton back and he can kind of fix that 3-point shot, I think he just got a little tired off of injury and just it was a long season last year. So get a better version of Melton. And now you've got a team that's a good, solid playoff team once you're healthy. All right. Well, see, I don't know if I'll come to you. Tonight's the second round. We'll see if the Warriors do anything kind of drastic. I don't know if we'll report too much on their second pick until maybe next week. But stay tuned because free agency is around the corner and you will get all the best breakdowns here on Stack and Dubs. If you've made it this far, give me a like, subscribe, follow. I've been Chris Chin. Until next time, peace, love, and Stack and Dubs.